Thank you for joining today's session. We will be getting started shortly. We do have a lot of folks signed up for today's session, and we want to give everyone a moment to log on and get connected so that we can dive into today's session. I do want to thank you all for joining us today. I'm Jasmine Garrett here with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Today's session is an informational overview on the policies NJEDA uses when reviewing a GROW EOA annual report. A quick housekeeping note, we do suspect that many questions will be answered in today's presentation. However, you are able to write in questions at any point during the presentation using Zoom's Q&A feature. It is one of your Zoom command options and will allow us to make sure we're able to get back to you and let others see these questions and answers as well. Today's session is being recorded and will also be posted on our NJEDA and YouTube pages. The slides and other resources will also be available in the next few days. Now, to get us started with the presentation, I will shift things over to NJEDA's Director of Incentives, Servicing, and Compliance, Kira Black. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Kira Black. I am the director with the Tax Credit Compliance Department in Incentive Servicing and Compliance. And today we will be doing training session number 2, and that's reviewing the NJEDA policies with respect to how we at NJEDA review the EOA GROW reports. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. There will be no live questions, as we didn't have with the other presentation as well. However, you can put your questions in the Q&A feature. If time permits, we will answer them and address them at the end of the session. However, if time does not permit, we will do what we did previously, which is capture all of the questions and then send out the response from EDA to everyone that's on today's audience. Another housekeeping is that we are slated for an hour today, not an hour and a half like we were the day before yesterday. So if, again, we don't have time, don't worry, we will still address everyone's questions. If you aren't able to get your question in the Q&A box, please feel free to email it to our portfolio services at njeda.gov email box, and we will also address the questions that are placed in there. So just a quick recap. Last month, we went over what the adopted amendments to the GROW regulations were and why we needed to have everyone have a full understanding of what the impacts are to the GROW EOA annual reporting starting April 2026. So that was the session that, again, was a general overview, letting everybody know what the changes will be. And then on Monday, we went over the AUP, the Agreed Upon Procedures guidance that the EDA is furnishing to the qualified CPA firm so they know exactly what needs to be included in the AUP report. So today's session, we're going to go over our EDA policies and how we get to the point where we can make a decision on should this employee on this log be accepted or rejected. And then we can also get to a decision on if the bonus should be allowed, and we can get to a decision on what the actual calculated award will be. So with that said, I'm going to hand the floor over to Program Manager Tanya Williams, and she will take you through today's presentation. Tanya?
Welcome, everyone, to our second Qualified CPA training session. My name is Tanya Williams, and I'm one of the program managers of Incentives, Servicing, and Compliance. On Monday, Kira Black provided training on our AUP procedures, and today I will be taking you through a deep dive into New Jersey economic development policies and the review processes we follow when we're evaluating eligible jobs and bonuses for our Grow New Jersey EOA projects. Later this week, on Friday, my colleague Rich Dickinson will walk you through the Next Gen portal and the annual report submissions process, offering more detailed guidance to support your compliance efforts. This training provides a general overview of the annual report preparation process. Several key documents are required to ensure you have all pertinent details regarding what was approved by the EDA board and certified at project completion. There are additional documents with relevant information for the companies approved as an EOA project, such as the incentive agreement, the approval letter, and amendments since board approval. Together, these documents are critical for confirming the qualified business facility and for identifying the certified full-time employees, as well as their approved job classifications and statewide jobs. At the beginning of the reporting period, during the first week of January 2026, an annual report reminder will be sent to the CFO or an equivalent highest ranking official of the company. This email will include a list of all required documents and executed certifications that must be submitted by the annual report deadline. Listed on this slide are the documents that must be filed timely, including and not limited to the employment log and a valid tax clearance for the reporting company and any approved affiliates that are party to the GROW, the New Jersey for the NJEDA project. Let's go over the key compliance reporting deadline for 2025 GROW New Jersey Annual Report. As stated in our GROW New Jersey regulations, all annual reports must be filed 120 days after the end of the company's tax filing period. Therefore, companies with a December 31st year end would be required to submit their annual report by the April 30th, 2026 date. Qualified CPAs are encouraged to submit early to ensure completeness pursuant to the AUP instructions and confirming all required documents and certifications are received for the annual report. The timeline to submit is established by New Jersey GROW regulations, which state failure to submit a complete annual report may result in the company being subject to forfeiture if not submitted by the 120th day of the tax credit reporting deadline. In addition to the required documents and certifications, there may be supplemental documents that are required, but they are project-specific documents. The need for these documents depend on what was approved for the company and must be submitted with the annual report. For example, if a company was approved for priority area, we must have the certification of withholdings in the annual report submission. We'll cover the specifics related to priority area projects in more details a little bit later in the training. Other documents, such as the WR-30s and the W-3s, are also required for all companies. For companies with a non-calendar tax year, for example, if one of the companies that you're working with has a tax ending date of September 30th, additional documents are required with the annual reports. Instead of the 4 standard quarters, 5 quarters will be required to be reported. And instead of 1 W-3, 2 W-3s will be required. This is because these type of projects really cover 2 years in their tax filing period, such as 2024 and 2025. But keep in mind, all of these documents are required according to the tax filing end date. Let's move on to the statewide test of 80%. Not all New Jersey GROW EOA companies are approved for statewide. Refer to the company's New Jersey incentive agreement to determine whether the company has a statewide requirement and therefore subject to an 80% test. If a state requirement applies, the next critical step is identifying the company's board approval date, as this determines which procedure must be used to calculate the average statewide for the tax filing period. For instance, for companies with a board approval date prior to October 2016, the qualified CPA must obtain the statewide certification, and this certification includes the month-end New Jersey full-time FTEs for the reporting company, as well as all approved affiliates associated with the GROW project. To calculate the average month-end statewide, add the FTEs reported on each month in the reporting period and divide the number of the months in the tax filing period. This calculation will result in the average statewide FTE. Then this average is compared to the FTE approved in the incentive agreement to confirm that the 80% threshold was met. For companies with a board approval date after October 2016, there's a little difference. The employment log must be completed and finalized first, as it is used to calculate the average number of new FTEs at the project site. The results from the employment log are then used in conjunction with the statewide certificate or certification, which reflects the month-end headcount for the reporting for the company and all approved affiliates. To calculate, which we call net new average statewide FTE for the tax filing period, the average new FTE from the employment log is subtracted from the statewide certification. The average of these monthly results produces the final net new average statewide headcount for the tax filing period. The employment log process will be covered in more details a little bit later in the training. We understand that the companies approved for October 2016 that require a net new average statewide calculation is more complex and a very comprehensive analysis. We are available for questions after the training. But under both processes, post October 2016 or pre-October 2016, the average statewide results are compared to the approved average statewide outlined in the incentive agreement to confirm that the 80% test was met. Now let's move on to the employment log. The employment log is a tool used by all companies reporting jobs for the tax filing period. Each employee listed must be reviewed individually to determine whether they meet the definition of eligible position under the New Jersey GROW regulations. To qualify as an eligible position, the employee must be full-time. They must work at least 35 hours per week, and the employee must work the required percentage of time at the QBF, and the company must offer healthcare benefits. The GROW EOA companies will furnish the qualified CPAs with a complete job log for the tax filing period. The pre-populated job log from our IDMS portal will consist of all the employees for the tax filing period. And as Kira Black mentioned in the training on Monday, your AUP states these employees must not be altered, but used as a reference for completing the AUP. The slide view shown here shows the job log contains multiple columns and various data points that the companies will complete. All columns you will be required to review. All employees will have PII, job titles, and the months they worked for at the QBF. It's important to review and verify each column on the job log. For example, some job titles may include titles such as sales, drivers, or even consultant. These type of titles will be considered transient in nature and not automatically deemed eligible. When a position appears to be potentially transient, additional documentation will be required to substantiate whether the role qualifies as an eligible position. My colleague Rich Dickinson will go into more specific details during the third training held on Friday regarding the job log template that the qualified CPA will be using to show the math on the average jobs and the median salary, and etc. As mentioned earlier, a company reporting jobs must offer healthcare benefits to the employees. In addition to completing the job log, the companies are required to provide supporting documentation to verify that the healthcare coverage is being offered. This includes submitting healthcare policies that covers the applicable tax filing period, as well as documentation confirming when any new hires would become eligible for healthcare benefits. All of this information will be certified and included in supplemental docs and will be executed within healthcare certification. Let's discuss how the average FTE is calculated for the tax filing period. Once the employment log is fully completed with responses provided for every employee, every month, and all required columns completed, the average accepted FTE for the tax filing period can be determined. At this point, the analysis, which will be very important to obtain, is the project completion certification. This will be used as a reference because it will outline the FTE targets the company is expected to meet. After the average FTE is calculated, the qualified CPA will allocate the approved FTEs into the required classifications or buckets by hire date. Here's the required order. Maintained positions are filled first, followed by retained employees. Then next, new employees. And finally, if there is any remaining acceptable employees, those will be classified in excess. Once the FTE classification is complete, the 80% test at the project site is applied to determine whether the company met program requirements for the tax year. If the 80% threshold is not met, the company may be forfeited the tax credit for that tax filing year. There are several types of Grow New Jersey EOA projects. Not all of them are the same. And for example, projects approved for priority area have specific analytics that must be measured. In addition to the completed employment log we already discussed, another important due diligence step involves the reporting company will provide the qualified CPA with a listing of all employees along with their New Jersey state withholdings. Once employees' data is included, including the PII and the New Jersey state withholding is collected, the total withholdings are calculated. And then 90% of that total is compared to the annual tax credit earned for the tax filing period. The annual tax credit is the lesser of the 90% of the withholding or the proposed tax credit. It's important to note that New Jersey having a reciprocal agreement with Pennsylvania. If an employee is a resident of Pennsylvania, their state withholdings can only be counted if they were hired prior to the board approval date. Once this analysis is complete, the supplemental executed certification of withholdings will be submitted with the annual report. Here's a sample of the 90% withholding template that the companies will be providing the CPA. As you can see, it has columns that list the employees' names, where they reside, their hire date, as well as the withholdings that were captured for that tax filing period. Next, let's discuss the bonus criteria. There are several companies that have or have been approved for bonuses. Bonuses are not approved for everyone. But again, it's important to use or obtain the project completion certification to verify how each reporting company was approved. Some bonuses require due diligence, which we will review in detail a little later. But however, some bonuses are not required to cause any additional analytics. And those bonuses are transient-oriented development, deep pocket poverty, and also LEED Silver. Again, no additional documentation is required once the project completion certification is approved. However, there are bonuses that if the company is approved for a bonus, that will require additional analytics. One of those would be the median salary bonus. So with the median salary bonus, the CPA will review the completed job log to see the accepted employees along with those salaries. And these wages are then calculated for the median salary for the tax filing period. The company's median salary must exceed the county or the Garden State Growth Zone median salary where the company or where the QBF resides. These bonuses range in a tier, starting with tier 1, going to tier 6. And in those tiers, a reward of $250 to up to $1,500 can be applied to the eligible employee, depending on how the salary surpass the county median table. It is important to note that stock options cannot be included in the calculation of the employee's wages. Let's take a look at the median salary bonus grid. The bonus tier is determined by the percentage that the median salaries exceed the applicable county median. To assist with this calculation, we will provide the qualified CPA with the New Jersey County median salary table to be used for the tax filing period. This table will be helpful to ensure that the tier determination is accurate and consistent with the approved project requirements. The percentage increases set the tier, but the company cannot exceed the tier that was approved at project completion certification. Another bonus that some of our companies are approved for is called the large number of jobs bonus. This bonus is based on the company's average monthly accepted FTEs. If they meet the tier set in the project completion certification, the qualified CPA will use the employment law to calculate the average accepted FTE, then compare these results to the large number of jobs bonus grid to determine whether the company achieved the approved tier. Depending on the average accepted FTE, the bonus awarded is determined by the tier earned. The FTE count is capped at the approved number, and may be reduced if the accepted jobs fall short of what was approved at project completion certification. It's a mouthful. Next slide. Let's take a look at the large number of jobs bonus grid. Just a reminder, the FTE count is capped at the approved number and may be reduced if the accepted FTEs fall short of the thresholds established in the project completion certification. Another bonus criteria to consider is the solar energy bonus. Companies approved for this bonus must continue to generate at least 50% of their annual electricity through on-site solar power. To verify this requirement is met, we perform multiple steps in our review process. First, we review the energy bills from the period prior to installation of the solar equipment at the QBF to establish a baseline of electricity use. Next, we review the electricity bills for the tax filing period at the project site. We confirm the calculations and we examine by reviewing the engineer's certifications to ensure the thresholds are met. The company must submit all supporting documentation to substantiate the solar energy bonus was achieved. The next bonus is for companies operating in the New Jersey Economic Development approved industry, like transportation, manufacturing, logistics, energy, technology, health, and finance. The companies are approved for a target bonus each year. We verify this by reviewing the company's NAICS code, even their corporate tax returns, and their website to ensure the bonus activities match the approved industry the bonus was approved for. Once the supporting documentation is aligned, the bonus could possibly be met. In addition, for companies approved for target industry as well as manufacturing and industrial premise, a 51% of the facility needs to be used for assembling, processing, manufacturing, and related distribution activities. To verify this, we review the facility's floor plan, showing the purpose of the square footage of the entire area. We review the non-industrial section of the QBF, the industrial section of the QBF. We conduct an annual site visits and we obtain photos of the entire facility and match that with the layout of the floor plan. Once verified, the industrial premise is measured and totaled and divided by the total QBF to calculate the industrial premise percentage. If the industrial premise use falls below 51%, the company will not qualify for the bonus. Now at this time, this is the conclusion of the second training. And let me see if there are any questions.
Tanya, it does look like we have one question in the Q&A feature. The question states, how much do you expect this CPA firm review to cost the companies? I am concerned about the cost, given that this will need to be worked on during busy season for the CPA firms, and companies will likely need to pay premium prices during that time frame. So NJEDA is unable to advise what a CPA firm will charge for services that they offer on their menu. So that is something that the companies would need to actually have conversations with the CPA firms and have when they are discussing the engagement letter. So unfortunately, we just are not able to advise how much this service would cost if a CPA firm decides to add this service to their menu.
So there appears to be one more question. How many CPA firms have joined the session?
We will review the analytics of our sessions after the session has completed, so we're not able to address that question right now either. So it looks like that is all the questions that we have. Thank you so much, Tanya, for that detailed review of what is going to be what the EDA does to determine eligibility for each full-time employee. And if there are any additional questions that people think of outside of this training session, please feel free. Go to the portfolio services at njeda.gov mailbox and enter it there, and we will address it. Regarding the QR code from the previous screen, please scan that. We need to capture your attendance. We need to ensure that all training sessions have been attended in order for us to make a decision on if we are able to deem a CPA firm as qualified, because the training sessions are indeed required in order to be able to deem a CPA as qualified. So please scan this QR code, complete the questionnaire, and that way we can capture the attendance for those who are interested in achieving that CPA qualified status. If there is nothing further at this time, that concludes our training session number 2. Okay, thank you.